Welcome to Doctors at Work. My name's Matt Daniel, and this podcast is about doctors' careers. It's part of my mission to help other doctors create successful and meaningful careers. Today, I'm having a conversation with Nitin Shrotri, and we're talking about how we can better support SAS doctors, locally employed doctors, and international medical graduates. International graduates form a large proportion of our workforce, with many working in SAS or locally employed roles. In this episode, Nitin and I discuss the challenges faced by international graduates, and we talk about racism, and he tells me about the importance of nationally agreed contracts. All of us need to be open to diversity and be aware of the prejudices and assumptions that we all inevitably hold. Talent doesn't come with a British accent. A number of national initiatives are taking place to better support international medical graduates and SAS and locally employed doctors, but each one of us can also look at what we can do in our own immediate environment. Welcome, Nitin. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Matt. Good to see you. And thank you for inviting me here. So my name is Nitin Shrotri. I'm a consultant urologist. I've stopped clinical practice at the moment, but I've just been appointed late last year as a visiting professor to the Institute of Medicine by the University of Bolton. The job there involves me looking after international graduates who end up in trouble with the GMC and help them relocate or get back onto the pathway and help support their career. So that's one of my roles, and it's an important role. The second role that I have also been appointed to recently is I'm the co-vice chair for the Center for Race Equality in Medicine. And that is where, again, we work with the GMC to improve the situation for doctors coming from different races. So these are my two main roles, really.
And I know today I invited you to talk about SAS doctors and locally employed doctors, and I'm going to come there in a minute. But actually, can you tell me a little bit more about those two roles that you're doing as well? Because they sound really worthwhile, both of those two roles.
The reason for picking up these roles is that, and I was invited to them, I'm really grateful for that, is because, 40% of the UK workforce is made up of international medical graduates. And a lot of the SAS doctors, LE doctors, and trust doctors are all international medical graduates. Now, trainees have people who support them, look after them, but the international graduates often have to fend for themselves and have to look after themselves. And they don't get looked after, not because people always don't want to, but often because people don't know how to look after them and what can be done for them. So the system is heavily against them. And as a nation, we really need every doctor we have within the country to be looking after patients, irrespective of where they come from. So that is the idea that, we need to improve the quality of life and the support that we offer to these international medical graduates. And that's my aim.
Mm.
And both these roles will help me actually do that better.
Mm.
The first one, in a sense, that IMGs end up in front of the GMC in trouble because of some cultural issue, and which they are not aware of, and they don't mean to be bad, but that's how it comes across. And the second role is also for similar reasons, where GMC data shows that international medical graduates fare badly in many ways. And the idea is to create a positive and constructive society and place for work for doctors, and also to make not just the profession, but also the general public aware of how we must treat our doctors, whatever they look like, whether they are black, brown, or any other color, and what accent they have. Because quite often I've nowadays seen that accent is an issue, that, anybody who has a non-British accent gets immediately sort of out of favor in a sense. And that's what we need to look at people and listen to what they're saying, not how they say it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my role.
Mm-hmm. Just maybe sticking with that point, but how do we change us as a profession, and how do we change society then? What can we do?
We all have what's familiar to us is always good for us. We're happy meeting people who look like us, who talk like us, who think like us. So that's a natural human tendency. What we need to do is open our minds up and close our eyes, perhaps, and listen to what people are saying, not what they look like, not what their accent is like. Listen to the idea and how we can, improve things, say, in the NHS. Because talent does not come just with a simple British accent. Talent comes from everywhere. Every corner of the globe can offer us different ways of thinking, different styles of thinking, different ideas. Britain used to be a very rich country, but we are not perhaps as rich as we used to be. And so perhaps there are nations who are poor, who are seen as poorer nations, but who have good medical practices, which can be inculcated into UK practice, into the UK way of thinking. And I remember Navina Evans, actually, who is the head of the NHS workforce and training area. She actually wrote an article on this about the UK learning from poorer countries.
And what gets in the way of people having that open mind? I know that there's a natural tendency that we like what we know, we like people that are the same as us, and that's how humans are formed, isn't it? For evolutionary reason. But equally, probably most of us would say actually it's really important that we have that diversity of views and diversity of opinion. So probably a lot of us know that, but what gets in the way of us practicing that?
Basic human nature prejudice, which is we all have within ourselves. I mean, I believe that I have prejudice within myself, but I have to work to become a better human being and look beyond what I think. I think that's the first thing. The second thing is in the NHS, we are busy firefighting. We're busy uh, catching up what happened yesterday or last year, and we need to move faster and think about today and I think that will help. So a change in culture, a change in thinking, opening our eyes, opening our mind. I know these are all airy fairy things, but I think that's the sort of thing that we need to do, and we need to just listen and treat people better. Really, we should treat people as we want ourselves treated, and keep our mind open to talent.
So that's a mindset shift, and I'm almost imagining there's somebody on my shoulder that sort of says, are you with these people because they like you? Are you with these people because they're any good? Yeah, or have you appointed this person because they look like you? Or have you appointed this person because they're really good at their job? And what you're saying is there's a natural tendency. I'm going to want to appoint a person that's like me because that's human nature. But what I need is to be aware of that little voice that sort of says, are you appointing this person because they like you, or are you giving them a job because they're good at what they do?
There's one more thing that little parrot on your shoulder should say. Um, is this person going to take my job?
Okay, tell me.
Because that's a lot of people get threatened by good people,
I
um,
see.
and which is understandable again. But I think a lot of the time, people in senior positions can feel threatened by appointing somebody who's really smart because then they might take their jobs. So perhaps that is something we should also think of and be more secure. Perhaps if we are more secure in ourselves, um, then it'll help.
So that's a focus on the bigger picture, isn't it? We're here for the patients. I'm building a team. I'm working with a team, and the purpose is the patient at the center of it. Not my career or my ego, but the purpose is the patients that we're trying to serve. Yeah, I'm interested in you. You said with international graduates that we've created a system that doesn't really give them support that they need. So if I sort of say to you, you can create a new system completely from scratch, what would you put into it?
Oh, that's a massive question. Um, you know, uh, I initiated the project, which was the SAS at BOWS project, which is something that we're going to talk about today. And what it started off with a new president being appointed to our organization, who had an open mind, who was known to be a changer. He believed in change for the better. And somebody threw a question to him because he did a president Q&A. And somebody threw a question at him, what about SAS doctors? What can he do to help them? And this is something I had on my mind because when I had applied to be a lead for urology, one of my mission was to improve the life of the so-called middle grade tier, as they are called. That's a derogatory term, I hasten to add, because they don't like being called a middle grade because they're not middle grade, because a lot of them are, senior specialist doctors. But that was the aim, that we need to reinvigorate that tier. And that is something that I had in mind. And with that question being asked, the president, ran with it. He accepted my idea, and we flew from them. Him and our vice president, who's the first female president of organization BAUS. They ran with it and supported it, and it became a very supportive area. The idea there was to improve simply the morale of that group of doctors who had nobody to look after them, or perhaps they can learn a particular skill in a niche area to give them that self-esteem, respect that they feel for themselves, or to go for CESAR, CESR as we call it, uh, to become consultants, full-fledged consultants. And a lot of them really went for the CESAR pathway. And it's important that we supported them and we received support from the organization. And I think every specialty association should be doing that because, like I said earlier, we need all the medical workforce working at its best, supported at its best for the good of our nation, of our people.
Hmm. And BAUS is British Association of Urological Surgeons for anybody who's not from UK, and CESAR is an equivalence path to becoming a consultant. Yeah,
Yeah,
or
thank
again for anybody who's not in UK thinking what are they talking about. So who is this group then? Let's talk about language we've used the term middle grade, and that's a derogatory term, and then SAS, locally employed doctors, trust grade doctors. What do these terms mean, and who is this group of doctors?
The first group of that we mentioned are the SAS, which is the specialty doctors, associate specialists, and specialty doctors. So these are doctors who are on a formal contract, which is the SAS contract, and a new one came out a few years ago. That is one of the good contracts for this group of doctors. But a lot of the other contracts, like the locally employed contracts or trust doctor contracts, they are all very variable in their terms and conditions. And these other contracts, they can have a variety of names. They can be a senior SHO, a research registrar, a trust grade registrar, a trust grade doctor. They can have umpteen names. You can pull any word out of your hat and create a name for that, really. But all these other contracts are prone to being misused. I'm not saying everybody does, but it's very possible that people could misuse and pay people, which is something that is less than appropriate for their grade of experience. And I think it would help if everybody was on a national contract like this. It does mean money for the NHS, but it does mean that people's rights are protected and people get paid appropriately for the work that they do. So that would be the first thing that I would say, that all this nomenclature should really come down to everybody being a consultant, a trainee, or an SAS doctor.
I hope you're enjoying the show. Please click subscribe so you'll be notified when new episodes become available. This podcast is part of my mission to help doctors create successful and meaningful careers. You can be part of that mission too by forwarding this show to one person who you think might benefit from listening. Thank you. Now on with the show. So the SAS contract as it is, that's a nationally agreed contract, and everything else is a hodgepodge of contracts, and nobody knows what they are and whether they're decent or not because there's no nationally agreed terms and conditions. That sounds problematic.
That is problematic, but financially it benefits foundation trusts to have their own terms and conditions for employing people at possible minimum wage.
I suppose it benefits them today because, because today I'm paying somebody better, but I'd be guessing it doesn't really benefit people in the long term because, if we employ people today on bad terms and conditions, well, they're going to burn out and they're going to leave. They're going to leave my trust and they're going to go to your trust. If you pay them better, they're going to come to you and they're going to go leave me. So it might help me today, but it probably won't help me in the long term.
I think when we treat people badly, they may accept it, but at some point they will realize that they're being treated badly, and that's not nice in so many ways. And it'll come home to roost. Those chickens will come home.
So how have we ended up with a large group of doctors that are all on contracts that don't have any standardization?
I think that's an old story, probably many many years old. But I think that was done when the NHS expanded its workforce using international medical graduates and did not wish to pay, or found the freedom of being able to work as independent foundation trusts and employ people as they wished to. But that's something that I don't know enough about to really go. But I think that is what has happened. That over a period of time, they've just been left to fend for themselves, and because of the world getting to be a better place, I think these things are now coming out into the open, and
Yeah,
that's why democracy is good, because people can speak up for themselves. Whether those in power hear you, or listen to you or not is different, but at least we can speak up.
yeah. Do you know what I'm wondering if I were an entrepreneurial locally employed doctor, I'd create a website of how much different hospitals pay and what kind of websites do they have, and they'd be like I don't know, a sort of an online review, sort of come to Nottingham, they pay more and give you an SPA session, sort of if you go to, somewhere else, that you do 10 clinical sessions and no admin time. So actually, I mean, it sounds like, at least in the long term, this is not going to be good for either doctors nor the hospitals.
No. Well, I did suggest a few years ago that I think the CQC should have a star given to trusts for how they treat their doctors. In fact, if trusts are racist or have an expression, then they should have a star, taken away for that. So that should be an area of assessment by the CQC.
Yeah, yeah. So what needs to change about all of those multiple different contracts? You talked about a national contract. How would you implement that, and what do we need to do to make that happen?
Well, simply as we have a standard contract for trainees and a standard consultant contract, that's the sort of contract that everybody should go on. They should go on to the SAS contract. So anybody who is not a trainee or anybody who is not a consultant should be on the SAS contract. So that would just simplify things and make life just standard for everybody, fairer for everybody in terms of payment, in terms of the roles, their duty hours, because a lot of international graduates who are locally employed doctors will be working unacceptable hours, perhaps, and that depends on every trust. Now, yes, some doctors may wish to work that hard, but as a locally employed doctor, uh, they don't get enough protection. Uh, and I think the BMA is doing a lot of work to support people there.
It's interesting because I'm trying to think, do I know what kind of contracts all of our doctors are on? And I'm going to be honest, I don't think that I do. Yeah. So I wonder how many people are there out there, listening or not, who actually have no idea what contracts the doctors are on.
This is not really your fault or anybody's fault. I think I remember being a consultant on call on a Friday afternoon, and my manager phoning me to say, "Oh, I'm sorry, but there's nobody on call tonight or the weekend." And my thinking is no, as in no registrar or no F2. And my thinking is, oh, please just get somebody. And that's when I don't think about, are they paying them enough? Are they doing, are they working too hard? No, I just want somebody. So, we all become desperate in times of really desperate need, doctors and managers alike, so it's not really anybody's fault there. The fault is that we haven't got enough doctors in the country, and we haven't trained enough people over the last 2 decades. We haven't expanded our medical workforce training places, and that's why we're paying the price,
Yeah.
for not training enough doctors.
But I guess what I can do and what other people can do on Monday, they can say, what contract are our doctors on? Yeah, because I will ask that question on Monday. In fact, I'm going to schedule an email today to go out on Monday morning. I'm going to say, what contract are our doctors on? Yeah.
Well, you might not be very popular with your managers. Next, you'll be looking for your next job soon.
I've got broad shoulders, Nitin. So yeah,
Good
it's
to know. Yes,
and
well, we need to speak up for those who are, under our care, so to say,
yeah.
pastoral care.
Yeah, maybe I'll ask the doctors rather now managers. That's what I'll do. I'll ask the doctors that I work with what contract they're on and what they think of it.
That's a better idea.
So maybe that would
Yes.
be a starting point. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
I'm interested also. You talked about your role in race equality. If I kind of come back to that in terms of the the workplace interactions. Again, we talked about what I as an individual need to do, and that I need to be checking myself and asking myself those questions. But what do we need to change in the system to make things better?
I was a BMA, a British Medical Association council member for a UK council member for just over 2 years, uh, between 2020 and 2022. During that time, I wrote about 8 blogs, which were published by the BMA, BMJ, and they are on a website that I have created. It's a very amateur website. It's called nitinshrotri.com, just to make it easy. Um, but I put them there, and I put my experiences there from the time I came to the UK, and how we should improve the NHS and how we should treat people better. And perhaps reading those blogs is something that people could do. That'll give us an idea about how we can just become better, and how I'm still hopeful that I think we as society are much better than we were many years ago. And people are becoming more aware, but we're also becoming more polarized in our thinking, which doesn't help. So really, it's about becoming more accepting, more open, more forgiving, accepting that we as a nation can't supply everything for ourselves. So if we can't have enough doctors, and we're getting doctors from abroad, then we need to treat them with respect and support them in settling in the UK. And the GMC have started doing good work in terms of induction for international graduates, which is a great start. But if you're a Twitter follower, then we have leaders like, Parth Kar, and Rob Fleming. Rob Fleming is an SAS doctor. Um, and there are other bodies like BAPIO and BIDA, who, along with the BMA, suggest how we can treat people better. BAPIO came out with a charter for locally employed doctors on how they can be treated better. So that's something to look at as well.
Okay, definitely. And BAPIO is British Association of Physicians of Indian Origin.
Thank you, Matt. Thank
Yeah,
you for thank
okay.
you for that. Yes,
Just sort of again for anybody listening. Um,
absolutely.
yeah, I might bring us to a close then, Nitin. What would be your top tips for doctors at work?
My If we want to support our doctors, really, especially SAS doctors, to become consultants, really, then we need to improve our departments' staffing levels, really. So we should really have adequate staffing numbers. We should have the support of consultants, of managers. We also need to have doctors who are motivated, and have a sense of drive. So our SAS and LE doctors should also not be sitting on the chairs uh, comfortably, but they should also be on the marks. Get set and go sort of thing. They should have that driven attitude to improve their life. We should also look at the skill requirements in different departments. And we should, have a desire for genuine NHS service improvement and the desire to support talented international medical graduates. What other actions we can do actually is uh, we should identify individuals who are interested in pursuing these pathways, like the CSER pathway. We should use network contracts because the new CSER pathway wants experience from 3 units. So one way of managing that is with the new ICSs or the new networks, we should issue our SAS doctors or IMGs with network contracts so that they can go and work in different hospitals within the same ICS and get their experience in 3 different departments so that they get assessed by different consultants. So it's not sort of done within in-house sort of. Network contracts is a good idea. Uh, SAS doctors should also spend time with trainees because there is a lot that trainees can learn from experienced SAS doctors, and it's of mutual benefit to both of them. So we should encourage interaction, and one group should not feel threatened by the other. It's important that we all work together. In terms of operating times, they should spend time with each other because they can learn from each other. Um, and it would also help if there was an SAS or locally employed doctor rep on the regional STCs, the specialty training committees, because then SAS doctors can know what's happening in terms of training. Uh, there should also be local DME support for a study leave and courses, etc. Um, and there should be an annual ARCP, annual review of competence in terms of how they are progressing, so that there is somebody who's keeping an eye on the doctor's progress and offering support as needed.
Yeah.
The last 2 things that I would suggest is that just like JCST, the Joint Committee for Surgical Training, uh, has got a chair who oversees all the training for trainees in, say, surgical departments, and there'll be similar people for medicine and pediatrics and obs and gynae. And there should be a co-chair to this chair who looks after the interests of those who are not on a formal training pathway. Because otherwise, these doctors have to fend for themselves and there is no one to speak up for them. And serendipitously, only 2 days ago, I received an email from a consultant colleague saying, I've got this specialty doctor who needs help. He's failed his exam twice, but he's good, he's intelligent, he's hardworking, and I want to help him. And normally a trainee would have the PSU, the professional support unit, to go and get advice on how he or she can do better. But there is nothing for SAS doctors. So having a co-chair on the training committee and having some sort of professional support units uh, for those who are not on a formal training pathway would help. Uh, so an accent doesn't come good talent doesn't come with just a posh English accent, is my thinking.
I
Good
like
talent
it.
is good talent.
Thank you very much, Nitin.
You're very welcome, Matt.